Hi everyone, this is Ari. I'm excited to be recording my second video for you all, talking about the concept again of conscious psychology. So I want to share with you guys a little bit more about why this is important and why do I believe that this is the next big thing in psychology. So really what is behind this is when working with clients is exploring what their life purpose is, what their mission is, what alignment will help them come into their life's realization. And this is because this is based off of the idea that depression and anxiety are merely a response, right? So these concepts have really important roles for us and they do really important things. And so what is the purpose of feeling these sensations? What is the purpose of experiencing these perceptions? The reality of it is that these things are telling us something. So what are they telling us? And so that's what conscious psychology uncovers and explores. It's the basis that these things and these sensations and experiences that we might encounter throughout life are not permanent, but rather a mere message of something deeper that's going on for that individual. So what does one do when they're experiencing depression, right? They might spend a lot of time alone. They might isolate themselves. They might be feeling worthless or hopeless and trying to rediscover their life purpose. And maybe they don't know how to do this. Maybe this is completely happening on a subconscious level, but it is definitely happening where there's different effects going on, and that can result in them spending a lot of time alone, right? So what is thinking about monks, right, and their daily practices of meditation and mindfulness? Their daily practice is to look inwards, right? And that is where they seek answers, they might seek guidance, and they might find mental clarity and finding a oneness with their higher power or their God. And the concept of depression, in my mind, is actually that it is a message for the individual that they are in need of getting in touch with their higher purpose, that they're in need of getting in touch with their highest power. And I'm using these terms interchangeably because I don't want to, I don't believe that these things are destined for one God, one avenue. I think religion is like rivers flowing into the ocean. It's all going to the same place. And I think whatever people choose is beautiful and inspiring as long as it doesn't involve hurting other people, right? But other than that, I think it's great. And so when I say higher power, God, divine, that's whatever it means to whoever's listening, right? That can be anything. And that's what's so beautiful about the concept of conscious psychology, is that it's the process of looking inwards to find what that person needs in their life in that moment. So getting back to the purpose of why one might be experiencing depression, is that might be an indication that they need to look inwards. In fact, it's an opportunity that they get to look inwards, which is really empowering, right? Like, what if we lived in a world where one experienced feeling of depression and they felt so incredibly supported by their community to go on this spiritual journey, to look inwards and find what are these sensations and feelings coming from, and how can we grow and learn from them. So that is the beautiful thing about this, right? And unfortunately, we don't have that society built in just yet. But I do think that we are approaching a new age, a new world. And that's why I think this is so important, and going out on a limb and sharing my ideas with this, because I think that the way we practice psychology now, it is the same way that Freud, hundreds of years ago now, practiced right? And his concepts were shared this way. And we're still, to some degree, practicing psychology the same way. I mean, they come on in, we act like a blank slate. We don't really let any of our preconceived perceptions, or at least we're not supposed to, right? Of course, that always can come in, but we do our best to make sure that our preconceived notions and perceptions don't come into the session, and we're allowing that client the space to completely be free and free associate, speaking what's ever on their mind, and using that as a method to kind of uncover what's really going on for them. And through that process, actually, the client maybe even gets to discover that for themselves, maybe for the first time in their life, which is really empowering, right? But what I realize is that although this method works, it's limiting. We're limiting ourselves because there's a stigma around mental health. There's a stigma around what therapy is. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is the way of the future, and this shouldn't necessarily be our foundation of psychology. So this is why, as some of you may be aware, the concept of coaching is really taking over, especially in Southern California, which, if you can't tell, that's where I'm based out of. So especially in Southern California, the whole concept of coaching is actually surpassing psychology, in my opinion, from what I've seen, just from the success stories I've seen from various coaches and the things that they're putting out. There's so many opportunities there that are happening. And I use the word opportunity very intentionally. And the reason I use that is because there is a bit of friction between psychology and coaching, right? Because sometimes they cross boundaries, right? Sometimes psychologists feel that coaches might be doing something that psychologists spent a lot of years getting education to do, right? Like working with clients who are dealing with chronic depression, right? It's not always something that can be coached out, right? Depending on the method. And so this is why it gets a little gray, right? But I see this as an opportunity because we see what is missing now. Coaches are actually paving the way for psychologists, which is beautiful because they're showing us what we're missing. We are missing this stigma-free, more open, non-traditional, completely open-minded perspective, right? So depression could mean a lot of things, and it can vary between people. There is a complete chemical side of depression, right? We see that in lots of studies, lots of research shows this, that people might be feeling depressed because of an imbalance of vitamin deficiency, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin B. Lots of research shows that these vitamins are directly linked with mood. There's the other side of it too, that once that's balanced out, if the depression persists, then there's something underlying, right? So what people find is if they do a silent meditation or silent retreat, they might mitigate their symptoms of depression. Why could that be happening? Is that actually that act alone can bring people together, right? So sometimes depression can be an indication that they're not having enough connection in their life, not having enough community, which I think is happening more and more in our world. And this is why this is so important to really advocate for this, right? To really advocate for communities supporting communities, people supporting people. Because we live in a digital age now, and it's only going to go escalating up from here. And I use the word up because we are moving forward. The digital age is really important to our society, and it is bringing us knowledge. That is the greatest invention of digital age, is that we get to spread knowledge. I am spreading my ideas, my background, my knowledge to you all through technology. So I'm definitely not anti-technology. I just think we need to be making sure that we're using it responsibly and putting places, safety nets, I would say, in place to make sure that people are still feeling connection and support. Because as much as you might be agreeing with these ideas, or maybe you're disagreeing with these ideas, you might be getting some sort of connection from this, right? Just by me speaking words to you and you listening and following along. That is an example of connection. But yet, if we were in person and you were standing in front of me, and you were able to gather all of the different perceptions of being in present, that is a completely different experience of connection. That's why these different experiences that a lot of people have throughout their lives are such important cues. So let's talk about anxiety, right? So what does anxiety usually indicate? It usually indicates that someone is constantly what we call future tripping. They're stuck in the future, they're thinking about the future, they're worrying about the future, they're making themselves anxious. Someone once told me that there's always two ways of being. You're either lost in thought or you're observing. I always keep this in mind because when you are lost in thought, you are either experiencing depression, which means you're going back in time, right? People who are depressed tend to be worrying about the past, maybe feeling shame, regret, remorse. So you're either lost in thought in the past or you're lost in thought in the future. When you are observing, you are actually truly present. When you stop and look and observe all the things in the background, maybe noticing the way the air feels on the skin, noticing the way any breeze might feel in the hair, noticing the pressure from your feet onto the concrete or ground, noticing how your joints might be feeling and how your body might be feeling. That is coming into the mindfulness perspective, which is bringing you into present moment. So I'm sharing this with you because I found this to be incredibly helpful, and I use this technique all the time with my clients. Is if you are experiencing anxiety or depression and it's chronic, there are certain steps that you can take to make sure that you're fully supported. First of all, I recommend that you go see a medical doctor, right? And I say that lightly because I don't know that medical doctors are always going to look at the full picture, unfortunately. I hope that this is changing, but I think we rely way too much on pharmaceutical medicines to fix problems that are actually really important to have, that are telling us something very significant. If your body is unbalanced with vitamins, which by the way, if you are eating any modern American diet, you are probably missing very vital vitamins. Like, it is, in my opinion, 99% sure that you are missing at least some. So my preference is to go to a naturopath or a holistic doctor, and usually they'll order blood work and see what your vitamin deficiencies might be, and then get you supported on vitamin supplements. Pretty easy, right? And it is actually a long-term fix. Like, you can buy a vitamin D, which, if you're not familiar with what vitamin D is, it's the vitamin that we get from the sun that our skin absorbs, right? You can buy vitamin D, or you can also just be more conscious and, if you can, get in the sun. So maybe you have vitamin D for the winter if you live somewhere where it's cold. So maybe you have vitamin D supplements just for the winter, maybe not. Maybe you're somebody who needs a lot more vitamin D, which your holistic doctor could also tell you that. And then you can supplement as needed. It doesn't have to be a permanent problem. The body is really good at adjusting, as long as we just put those places in place to protect us and to support us. Then, after the chemical balance is restored, then we can move on to what is actually going on. So looking at depression as a message, questions that might be coming up is, where do you go in your thoughts where that you feel depressed? Where are you resulting to? Can you think back to a very specific memory? Is there a very specific thing that's happening when you are going backwards? Where are you going? How are you going there? Where in your body do you feel it? What is it telling you? Are you feeling shame? Are you preventing yourself from feeling shame? Are you hiding it? Are you pushing it out? Because if you are, it's only going to perpetuate the issue. So that is the concept behind conscious psychology, is looking at how is this affecting you and why is this important? Why do we need to feel these feelings? As humans, we all have memories of experiencing these sensations and perceptions. So why? It's amazing what happens when you allow people the space to explore why, instead of just saying, just because, which is how we approach pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals often it's just because. So, and then if you're feeling anxious, tend to feel anxious or anxiety, where do you go? What are you worried about? Is it financial? Is it your personal relationships? I think a lot of these emotions come back down to community and connection. How much face-to-face time are you getting with a person that truly understands you, that truly gets you? What I'm realizing working in this field is that most people don't have that. And I'm on a mission to change that. So I hope you guys subscribe to future videos, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, please subscribe to the channel. And I'm really excited to continue to share my concepts and ideas with you all. Let's do this together.